Hello, my name is Olivia Perez, and this presentation is for KIN 656, and I'll be doing my presentation on biomechanics of Ironman/running collapse. So now, what is a running collapse? And what a running collapse is, it actually is an exercise-associated collapse, and this is diagnosis by the inability to stand or walk unaided due to syncope or pre-syncope after an intense exercise. So, like an Ironman event that has three different categories of swimming, cycling, and running, which is at the end of the Ironman race, it is a very intense exercise and performance. And this is related due to poor pacing strategy. Psychological factors are heavily impacted as well, as this is mentally fatiguing, and the post race ambulation. And athletes that collapse either do not complete the event, unfortunately, they also have a chance of dying, or they recover after medical assistance once stopping a race. So, in an Ironman event, if they do request for medical assistance, they are automatically withdrawn from that race. Which is also why a running collapse does happen with a lot of athletes who do want to continue that race. They want to reach that finish line. However, they do get to this point of a running collapse. And to continue, when athletes collapse near the finish line, they lose their movement patterns, coordination, and present compensatory postures due to continuing in a progression rate. So once when they reach that running collapse near the finish line, they have many alterations that occur. And what is also seen in the literature was that there was 4 different postures that are noted during a running collapse. The first one is going to be running and walking forward with the head and upper body in a bent forward position due to them already reaching that fatigue state due to many energy storage depletions. And then the second stage is going to be walking with the head and upper body in a horizontal position. So now they are in a full leaned over position to where they are using any energy that they can to still keep moving forward to that finish line. And then the third one is going to be after they collapse, they are going to be in a four-limb position on the ground. So unfortunately, they're going to be fully on the ground after they no longer can stand on their lower limbs. And then the last one's going to be they begin to crawl forward towards that finish line. And these postures are shown in this diagram here. So in the top left corner, it's actually that stage is going to be early Foster. Then on the top right corner is going to be half Foster. On the bottom left is going to be after collapsing to the ground. And then the bottom right is going to be full Foster collapse positions. So this is what I described previously in the slide. And these are going to be each stage that normally happen during a running collapse. And with these positions, it results in an imbalanced gait and subsequent collapse to the ground where energy storages are depleted. So this is a progressional rate of when they are still pushing. While these energy storages are depleted, there is no more energy storages in order to use that chemical energy to mechanical energy. And this could be due to, again, without having any food that was consumed during that race. It also could be from hyponatremia, from dehydration as well. And with no capacity to have normal musculoskeletal patterns in movement. So because of the imbalanced gait or altered gait and the subsequent collapses to the ground, there is no more movement patterns that can occur due to their struggle to maintain in a normal position standing on their legs. And with gait and leg movements, it is seen that the flex position of the foot during the stride length, which is defined as the length of running stride, and that's going to be the full leg swing of that foot impact. And this influences the impact shock. So this actually requires a lot more energy to have that full swing of that leg movement in the gait cycle in order for them to keep propelling forward. And with the running collapse, prolonged running requires a maintained oxygen delivery, substrate supply to replenish for energy, and thermal regulation systems are not compromised during the event. So usually this is going to happen towards the end of where they will reach that running collapse. During that duration of the race, they should have that training of their performance to be able to maintain these oxygen consumptions that they are training for, and then substrate supply that they intake during the race. Prevention strategies for runners to not have a running collapse is to prevent an exercise associated collapse with proper training, race pacing, symptom recognition, and continued movement after a race. More or less, this is a very high impact when they don't continue to move after a race. Although their energy storages are completely depleted, they should keep that movement if they still have some energy, so then they are able to still maintain and keep that moving forward. And now, looking specifically at race pacing, it is shown that with runners who do have an ego or task oriented drives without maintaining their homeostasis, this is more prone for them to lead to fatigue and perhaps a collapse. And this is more or less because without that race pacing, they're probably running at higher velocities, higher speeds, probably trying to just reach that distance a lot quicker. And without that pacing, it does have its risk. And with the pacing, it allows to complete the event, but they may be less motivated due to not running at maybe a faster time or a faster speed. And with race pacing, with high fluctuations in power output are detrimental and is difficult to maintain at effective pacing strategy. So with having higher fluctuations in their race pacing, it is difficult to maintain their pace throughout the race. And higher cases of developing exercise-associated collapse are more prevalent in slow running. And the results in a longer race duration and prolonged exercise due to the slower running pace. And again, like I mentioned, is that there are increased risk rates. And there's also a theory of hitting the wall. And this is a sudden onset of fatigue. And this commonly has been shown to be in marathon and Ironman runners. And this is from the decrease of the force output of muscles from prolonged exercise. And this is from the shorter stride rates, which is the total number of running steps per minute. And the shorter stride rates are going to occur due to that prolonged amount of exercise and that fatigue that is from what we call hitting the wall. And this is more commonly going to be seen in longer distance events like of the 5,000 meter or 10,000 meter events. And these have been shown to be with runners who are fast starts and finishers, but with a slower pace in the middle. And now, overall, looking at the biomechanics of a running collapse, is that the running collapse has an integrated approach of utilizing biomechanics, physiology, and psychology. Running at those longer distances does encounter biomechanics as in alterations of gait mechanics, stride rates, and stride lengths. Physiology is going to be looking at the energy depletions, thermogenics, as well as psychology. It is mentally fatiguing. They are running at longer distances and they're also mentally wanting to finish that race. And then prior to the collapse from depleted energy storages leads to biomechanical changes in running / finishing that race. Like I mentioned, there's shorter stride rates and lengths, and there's altercations of gait mechanics to maintain that running stance as well. And lastly is they're probably not going to be able to maintain that running posture, more or less utilizing leg limbs effectively. And this is what happens with the running collapse is that once when they get to that crawling stage of utilizing their elbows and knees, their trunk is also angled lower than the hips to finish that race. So when they're at that running collapse and they are at that last stage of crawling to that finish line, they're utilizing any energy that they have or using their mechanics to propel them forward as their body is able to be in a certain position to keep them going and maintain that posture. All right, and thank you for listening to my presentation, and these are my references.